This is World News Program coming to you live from Algiers with me, Miriam Zian, to the headlines. Algeria and Tunisia signed 25 agreements, memoranda of understanding and cooperation programs covering multiple sectors. Algeria highlighted the positive results achieved in many fields of endeavor, while Tunisia reaffirmed the shared will to move toward genuine integration between the two countries. In Gaza, 13 people have died due to the severe cold and heavy rainfalls. Palestinian groups are making urgent appeals for essential humanitarian protection and the immediate opening of crossings, while UNRWA warns that displaced families are facing yet another wave of suffering amid fluctuating weather conditions. In Sudan, the army announced that dozens of Rapid Support Forces fighters were killed in North Kordofan state. The Darfur regional government says the RSF continues to commit abuses against civilians in Al-Fashir. And amid the escalating violations, calls are growing for protests condemning RSF crimes west of the country. On the Ukraine war, Russian strikes on southern Ukraine have left several dead and wounded. Russia says it has not received the revised version of the US peace plan, while President Zelensky inspected Ukrainian troops around Kupiansk, stressing that military achievements strengthen diplomatic efforts. Welcome back to the details of the bulletin. First, Algerian Prime Minister Sifir Ghraib and Tunisia's Prime Minister Sada Zafarani on Friday supervised the signing of several agreements, memoranda of understanding and cooperation programs. The agreement signed during the expanded session of the 23rd Algeria-Tunisia High Joint Commission over the sectors of energy and renewables, finance, industry, pharmaceuticals, fisheries, water, transport, investment, solidarity, telecommunications, employment, culture, as well as health, vocational training, youth, and sports. In the same context, Algerian Prime Minister Sifir Ghraib affirmed that the 23rd session of the Algeria-Tunisia High Joint Commission represents an important step in strengthening bilateral cooperation. In his closing remarks, delivered alongside Tunisian Prime Minister Sada Zafarani, he stressed that the legal instruments signed will reinforce the institutional and legal framework supporting the growing momentum in bilateral cooperation.
لقد سمح التئام هذه الدورة.
The convening of this session has made it possible to achieve an important step towards strengthening bilateral cooperation, as confirmed by the number of legal texts that were signed, which will undoubtedly help reinforce the legal and institutional frameworks needed to support the growing momentum of bilateral cooperation. In addition to the fruitful and intensive cooperation in many strategic fields, such as security, military and energy cooperation, the relations between the two countries are witnessing continuous expansion in the economic sphere, allowing for the optimal use of the country's capacities and the integrated deployment of their resources.
Prime Minister Sifir Ghraib praised what he described as the positive and satisfactory results achieved across many cooperation sectors. Speaking during the expanded session in Tunis, he highlighted ongoing coordination between both countries in addressing security threats, notably in securing their shared borders.
وفي هذا الصدد وكتقييم أولي.
In this regard, as an initial assessment, I can commend the positive and satisfactory results that have been achieved in many sectors of cooperation. I highly appreciate the continuous and intensive coordination between the two countries in confronting various security threats, particularly in the field of security shared borders, in order to reduce the risks of terrorism, transnational organized crime, and illegal migration, as well as smuggling in its various forms and drug trafficking. Cooperation between the two countries in this field continues to advance with steady and reassuring steps, as confirmed by the outcomes of the second meeting of the Joint Security Committee, held in Algiers in July 14 and 15, 2025, during which the security situation in the region and neighboring countries and its repercussions for the security of both states was assessed. I would also like to express my satisfaction with the recent signing by the two countries of an agreement on cooperation in the military field in the month of October 2025, which undoubtedly constitutes an additional building block in the edifice of bilateral cooperation in this important field.
Ghraib commended Algeria's energy exports in meeting Tunisia's domestic needs for natural gas and electricity. He stressed that energy remains a central pillar of bilateral cooperation and noted Algeria's ambition to deepen collaboration through major structural projects aimed at boosting the trilateral electricity interconnection.
فيما يخص مجال الطاقة
The energy sector represents a fundamental pillar of bilateral cooperation. We note with satisfaction the contribution of Algerian energy exports in meeting Tunisia's domestic demand for natural gas and electricity. Through this, we aspire to strengthen cooperation in this field by implementing structured projects aimed at enhancing the trilateral electrical interconnection. The volume of trade exchanges between the two countries has also increased in recent years, reaching $2.30 billion in 2024. With the hydrocarbons sector dominating its commodity composition, although Tunisia ranks second in Africa among Algeria's trade partners. Statistical data indicates that bilateral exchanges remain below the level of the two countries' capabilities.
Prime Minister Sifi Ghraib called for removing all structural and temporary obstacles hindering the development of trade flows to further strengthen cooperation and partnership. He underscored the need to increase non-hydrocarbon trade and establish appropriate regulatory frameworks to ease the movement of goods and services.
إن تعزيز التبادل التجاري
Enhancing trade exchange must be linked to a similar dynamic in the promotion of investment partnership between the two countries. Hence, the urgent need to intensify contact between investors and entrepreneurs from both sides and to establish institutional and legal frameworks that correspond to local economic changes and international transformations and which contribute to creating an effective dynamic for partnership between the two countries. The ongoing economic reforms in both countries, along with the many opportunities offered by the shared commitment to building an integrated and comprehensive partnership, constitute a fundamental incentive to start implementing several joint projects.
Algeria and Tunisia reaffirmed their strong support for the Palestinian people. They also renewed their backing for a comprehensive political solution in Libya to advance reconciliation and elections, and stressed the need to restore stability in Sudan, preserve its unity and sovereignty, and end the bloodshed. Let's take a listen.
يقف البلدان بقوة إلى جانب الشعب الفلسطيني.
Both countries stand firmly with the Palestinian people in the face of the war of genocide and attempts to undermine their cause, and they support their struggle to attain their rights and build an independent state with Al-Quds as its capital.
يدعم بلدانا تسوية سياسية شاملة للأزمة في ليبيا الشقيقة.
The two countries support a comprehensive political settlement to the crisis in sisterly Libya by enabling the Libyan brothers themselves to achieve national interests and by accelerating the organization of legislative and presidential elections leading to the establishment of unified, legitimate and strong institutions.
يتفق البلدان على أهمية استعادة الوئام في السودان الشقيق.
The two countries agree on the importance of restoring harmony in sisterly Sudan, preserving its unity and sovereignty, stemming the bloodshed of its people, and protecting its wealth.
And Tunisian Prime Minister Sarah Zafarani stated that the convening of the session of the High Joint Commission is an important opportunity to follow up on progress achieved, evaluate cooperation paths, and explore new prospects to enhance efficiency and speed, expressing satisfaction with the positive momentum and results characterizing bilateral cooperation in recent years.
Our meeting today marks an important milestone to review achievements in joint cooperation, assess progress, and explore new ways to enhance its effectiveness and efficiency. We express our satisfaction with the positive momentum and tangible results that bilateral cooperation between the two countries has achieved in recent years, particularly through the previous sessions of the Tunisian-Algerian Joint High Commission. We commend the sense of responsibility and seriousness shown by the sectoral, technical, and preparatory committees, reflecting the shared will of both delegations to turn recommendations into concrete actions. We also stress the importance of sustained follow-up to implement these recommendations in order to further strengthen cooperation in trade, energy, transport, security, border development, water management, tourism, higher education, and other key sectors.
Prime Minister Safir Ghayab held bilateral talks with Tunisian Prime Minister Sarah Zafarani at the government palace in Tunis. The discussions, which included both delegations, reviewed the report of the follow-up committee chaired by Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf and his Tunisian counterpart Mohamed Ali Nafti. The Tunisian Prime Minister praised the strong bilateral relations, Algeria's role in ensuring Tunisia's energy supply, and the dynamic growth of trade and investment, emphasizing the need to further strengthen and expand cooperation. Algeria and Tunisia signed 7 partnership agreements across sectors, including textiles, food and tourism, along with a cooperation deal between the Economic Renewal Council and the Tunisian Union of Industry, Trade and Handicrafts. Speaking after the ceremony at the Algerian-Tunisian Economic Forum in Tunis, Algeria's Minister of Foreign Trade, Kamal Rizieq, said the forum reflects a shared commitment to elevating bilateral cooperation to a comprehensive strategic partnership, noting a 42% rise in trade over the past 3 years. In other news, the government media office in Gaza announced that 13 people were either killed or reported missing due to the impact of the polar storm and the severe weather that struck the strip. In a statement published Friday in its Telegram account, the office revealed that at least 13 homes had collapsed, while more than 27,000 tents sheltering displaced families were swept away, flooded, or torn apart by strong winds. It condemned the inhumane policies that constitute a blatant violation of international humanitarian law and expose hundreds of thousands of civilians to grave risk amid harsh weather conditions and the ongoing aggression in all its forms. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, said Friday that heavy rainfall in Gaza had flooded tents and damaged residents' belongings, increasing health risks, including hypothermia among infants and diseases linked to sewage overflow. OCHA added that field teams had set up a rapid flood response system involving several UN agencies and NGOs. More than 160 alerts have been addressed, and the situation of over 16,000 families has been assessed. The UN and Relief Works Agency warned of worsening social and humanitarian suffering among displaced families in Gaza after the storm flooded their makeshift shelters. In a post on X, UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini said that the people of Gaza have lost everything and are facing yet another wave of hardship, especially with unstable weather and heavy rainfall causing damage and serious health risks to displaced families.
Storm Byron is battering Gaza, and the population is facing a new wave of suffering. The people of Gaza, who have lost everything and need everything, are facing even greater hardship. The suffering of displaced families in tents and temporary shelters is commended by the heavy rains that have brought flooding and damage, as well as additional health risks. UNRWA teams are continuing their work to assist and support displaced Palestinians as much as possible, pumping out sewage and flood water, collecting garbage, distributing plastic sheeting, winter clothing and blankets, and providing medical care.
And in a harrowing scene, families in Gaza struggle to secure their worn-out tents after a winter storm battered the area, compounding an already overwhelming and heavy burden. Images from Gaza show torn tents, mud, and pools of dirty water. What can Gaza possibly export today other than pictures of misery and suffering? Usama Ayedi has the report.
The post-ceasefire period has not been any better for Palestinians in Gaza. Hundreds of thousands in the devastated Strip witness daily struggles with suffering of every sort. The killing machine is here. It doesn't stop. The methods may differ, but the pain is the same. If you don't die under the bombardment, neither the crushing hunger nor the bitter winter nights will have mercy on you.
We woke up to a sound like an explosion. We got out and found our neighbor's house, which was weakened because of shelling and because of the strong winds and rain. It fell completely.
Amidst tattered patches called tents and on the edges of the road submerged in mud, Gaza overflows with its children and women, adding another chapter of the suffering.
The war that has been ongoing for years, people have no shelter except for this house, which has already burnt, weakened and previously shelled. People had shelter but to stay in this house which collapsed on them due to the destruction. It had suffered before and also because of the rain. The rain brought down the house on the people living in it.
The tent, the last refuge for those whose homes were destroyed by the occupation, is now battling a storm that completes what the war of extermination began. As if all circumstances have conspired against Gaza, the death toll alone rises every day, and the chapters of misery have become endless.
We are still trying our best to get all the members of this family out from under the rubble. However, the main obstacle we face in the civil defense is finding the necessary equipment, finding bulldozers. We have the labor and our teams in the civil defense are present, but we need heavy equipment. The nights have been difficult for Gaza, and we had previously warned that this weather would be very harsh on the citizens in the Gaza Strip. A tent cannot fully accommodate a family completely. We are calling on all countries to remove the rubble and rebuild the Gaza Strip.
Winter in Gaza is another season of suffering. It paints a bleak picture, documenting more martyrs and writing the tragedies of Gazans in mud. The coming storm is more dangerous. With the arrival of Storm Bayern, displaced people are facing a new catastrophe, a harsh and terrifying one. In a land that has lost all the essentials of life, these are the warnings issued by the Gaza Media Office. Perhaps the death from mud and cold is more merciful than the death from the bombs by the Zionists, but it remains a testament to the miserable situation in which Gazans find themselves trapped between despair and pain.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned settlement expansion in the West Bank and East al-Quds, confirming that 2025 has seen the largest expansion of settlement plans since UN monitoring began. Guterres also warned of rising settler violence, particularly during the olive harvest season, stressing that all settlements are illegal and constitute a flagrant violation of international law. He expressed deep concern over the fragile security situation in Gaza and the ongoing Israeli airstrikes that have caused heavy civilian casualties and widespread destruction of infrastructure, saying that 80% of residential and public buildings have been destroyed. The Israeli warplanes carried out a series of airstrikes Friday, hitting several areas in eastern and southern Lebanon. Lebanon's national agency or news agency reported that 4 strikes targeted Al-Mahmoudiyya and Al-Jarmak near Al-Aisha in the Jazin region. Other areas in southern Lebanon were struck as well, in addition to an attack on Wadi Zalaya in western Beqa, eastern Lebanon. And also, the Israeli occupation forces conducted 2 separate incursions in the provinces of Qunayt and Dara in southern Syria. Syrian TV reported Friday that a military patrol of 8 vehicles entered villages in rural Qunayt between Thursday night and early Friday morning, arresting 2 young men at a checkpoint set up between Batna and Al-Ajraf. Another patrol reportedly advanced along the Maria Abidin Road in the Yarmouk Basin in Dara, setting up a checkpoint and carrying out searches. And to Sudan now, the Sudanese army announced that dozens of Rapid Support Forces fighters, including senior commanders, were killed in battles in West Kordofan state. Sources within the Sudanese army told All 24 News on Friday that the armed forces and supporting units carried out aerial operations targeting RSF positions in the Adara area of West Kordofan, resulting in heavy losses in personnel and equipment. They added that efforts are ongoing to liberate all fronts from RSF control in the west of the country. Several Sudanese civilians were killed and others wounded after a drone strike carried out by the Rapid Support Forces on the city of Rahad in North Kordofan. According to the local Rahad Abu Dakna emergency room, RSF drones targeted the external civilian crossing route in Rahad, killing several people, including women and children, and injuring many others with varying degrees of severity. The Darfur regional government in Sudan reported that the RSF continues to commit massacres against unarmed civilians in the besieged city of Al-Fashir, preventing them from leaving by brutal means. In remarks to All 24 News on Friday, Darfur's Minister of Culture and Information Ahmed Shanab confirmed that RSF fighters are still killing civilians in Al-Fashir in North Darfur using all types of weapons.
The situation in Al-Fashir remains the same. The militia still controls Al-Fashir and continues to attack and kill its residents. The innocent civilians are the ones who suffer. There isn't a single soldier in Al-Fashir. They're all innocent civilians. The militia continues to drag them through the streets and slaughter them like sheep. The militia continues to kill the people of Al-Fashir with all kinds of weapons. They're actively working to displace the people of Al-Fashir and replace them with others.
And Sudanese human rights organizations and unions called for nationwide demonstrations denouncing RSF crimes in various areas of Western Sudan. Speaking to All 24 News on Friday, Rania Al-Jalabi, member of the Presidential Council of the National Coordination Forces, said Saturday's demonstrations affirm full public support for the Sudanese army in its efforts to liberate every inch of the country.
December 13 is a day of solidarity with the armed forces. Therefore, it is our duty as the Sudanese people to go out on this day and join the demonstrations announced in various countries around the world and across Sudan's diverse states in support of and to affirm the legitimacy of the armed forces.
The significant number of Sudanese citizens also expressed readiness to join the demonstration, reaffirming their support for the armed forces. Let's have a listen.
I, citizen Uthman al-Sheikh, call upon all honorable people inside and outside the country to rally behind the Sudanese armed forces. A homeland we do not defend is a homeland we do not deserve to live in.
I, Sudanese citizens Aya Kashan, call upon the Sudanese people to support the Sudanese armed forces and the supporting security forces by gathering on Saturday, December 13, 2025, in support of the armed forces and in condemnation of foreign interference in the country's internal affairs to classify the Rapid Support Forces as a terrorist militia. Victory is from God.
Sudanese authorities called on the international community to take a firm stance against the Rapid Support Forces and designate them as terrorist organization. In a Vienna briefing, a Sudanese UN official warned that repeated RSF massacres, including over 120 killed in the Kaluyi massacre in South Kordofan, alongside satellite documented atrocities in Al-Fashir and attacks on infrastructure and aid convoys. The United Kingdom, meanwhile, announced sanctions including asset freezes and travel bans targeting RSF Deputy Commander Abdelrahim Hamdan Dagalo and 3 other senior officials for heinous acts of violence in Al-Fashir, North Darfur. The emergency services and the governor of Ukraine's southern Odessa region, Oleg Kiper, reported Friday that Russia struck energy facilities overnight, sparking fires and causing power outages. Ukrainian authorities in Sumy confirmed 2 deaths and several injuries after heavy Russian shelling on the region, while officials in Dnipro reported 1 dead and multiple wounded in another Russian attack. Russian presidential aide Yuri Yushakov said Moscow has not yet received a revised version of the U.S. peace plan for Ukraine. He added that Russia will sooner or later hold active contacts with Washington regarding the proposed settlement, noting that what is currently being discussed between Americans, Europeans, and Ukrainians will eventually be addressed with Moscow. Yushakov did not rule out that Russia may reject parts of the amended U.S. document once it is formally delivered. The Ukrainian military announced it had recaptured 2 towns from Russian forces near the strategic city of Kupiansk in the northeastern Kharkiv region. In a telegram post Friday, Ukraine's Katyia brigade said its troops advanced to the Oskil River, cutting Russian supply lines. The brigade confirmed Ukrainian forces regained control of Kindra-Shivka and Radakivka along with neighborhoods in northern Kupiansk areas Moscow claimed to have seized last month. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he visited troops near Kupiansk. In a video posted on Telegram wearing a bulletproof vest, he noted that many Russians spoke about Kupiansk and stressed that he toured the area and congratulated Ukrainian soldiers. U.S. President Donald Trump warned that the conflict in Ukraine would or could escalate into a third world war if it spirals out of control. Speaking to reporters at the White House, he said he strongly wants to see the war end and that his administration is doing its utmost to achieve it. Trump expressed optimism that the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine could soon reach an agreement, adding that Washington will send a representative to European talks next week if there is a real chance of meaningful progress toward a ceasefire. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro accused the United States of maritime piracy after U.S. forces in the Caribbean seized an oil tanker off his country's coast. Speaking on state television, Maduro said Washington had kidnapped the crew and stolen the vessel, describing the operation as a new era of criminal piracy in the Caribbean and linking it to a military-style attack, abduction, and robbery targeting a ship on a peace mission. Meanwhile, Brazilian media reported that President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva held talks with Maduro on Thursday, offering Brazil's readiness to mediate the disputes between Caracas and Washington. Lula expressed concern over the U.S. military presence in the Caribbean and affirmed Brazil's willingness to support efforts to reduce tensions and promote regional stability. That was it for tonight's news program. Thanks for watching and have a great night.